So we've got a state of emergency here, and it's not so much this countertop area that Michelle Strohtribe is cleaning up while agreeing to have this conversation with me, but more so, we actually have a state of emergency with Rhode Island. McKee has extended the Rhode Island C-19 emergency order, as well as Texas border cities in state of emergency with Title 42 set to end. Now, these are very, very important topics that I want to discuss. But more importantly, I think I want to touch on a little bit of what you talked about with eminent domain.
Okay. And then I want to touch on what you just talked about when it comes to the C-19 thing, because that's interesting right now with what else I just read.
Well, what you were mentioning earlier is that there are changes occurring in Iowa. Mm-hmm. In regard to eminent domain, trespassing, property owners' rights, state laws, pushed by big corporations, ultimately profit over people, as you say it best.
Technically not eminent domain, I don't think, but definitely the laws right now. There is an Ohio state law that pretty much gives companies, corporations, from what I gathered, what I remember, what I read, the ability to survey private property, private homeowners, private property for the use of pipelines and whatnot. They have to give them like a 10-day heads up, and then they can legally go on your land and start surveying for where they want to put their pipelines. Right now it is, my brain is doing its thing where it forgets words. What is it? Something CO2. Literally talked about it all morning long. Talked about
Carbon
it numerous
dioxide?
times. No, the name of the company that with the Heartland Greenway.
Oh, okay.
I don't know because my brain's
but you
in
said it
10
on your
bajillion
video.
things. Yeah, my brain's in 10 bajillion things. So
if you want to know the company, it's on Squirrel
yeah,
Tracks.
it's on there. But basically, Ohio state law dictates that these companies basically have more rights than these homeowners. But then I don't remember if it's a different court in Iowa, that said no, or if it's a federal court that said that that's unconstitutional. Therefore, technically, it's a win for homeowners versus the corporations, because now the corporations don't have the legal right to just go walk your property for their surveying whatevers, but eminent domain is still an option for these companies.
Ooh. Well, option for the local government.
Which will say yes for these companies, like North Carolina has done.
Companies don't have the ability to.
No, North Carolina implemented eminent domain in a town for a Vietnamese company that wanted to come here to start building their electric vehicles in the United States so they could get the United States tax credit. The governor or mayor in North Carolina wanted to allow that so that he also, as a state, got a tax credit, but it's the taxpayers who are helping pay for everything that's happening, and it's just this whole big hoopla, in my opinion, that sucks.
A hoopla for sure, and I was actually having this conversation with a friend yesterday or the day before, where you say, these companies, ultimately the state government is siding with the property owners and maintaining their rights over the companies trying to infringe and ultimately gain access to their properties for surveying, which would ultimately have the end result, some way, somehow, some shape or form, connecting with the company. They're not surveying your land just to know what your backyard looks like. They're surveying it because they have plans that they're preparing for that are going to run through your property before eminent domain were to even be a topic of discussion and conversation. But here's the deal. They're siding with, or at least trying to provide these people with ground to stand on, upholding their constitutional rights. Yet, depending on who's involved and what they want, even if you win, do you still lose? because the companies, they have the money, they have the power, they have the ability to make life difficult. And the reason why I say this is because I was actually having this conversation with a friend about YouTube, and he has some issues right now with the platform. And I think that his immediate reaction would be to, assert dominance and, stand up, put your foot down and try to beat the system. But I said, look, dude, this system, even if you win, you lose. I don't know where you got that from.
It's the kid got it, butterscotch beer. It's not from Universal.
Yeah, I don't know where that came.
And I don't know how to open it.
But it's like, even if you win, you still lose. Okay. So that's the thing. Smells good. So
It does smell good.
you got to remember that when you pick these fights and these battles. Look who's calling. Look who's calling.
Oh, the irony
Look
of
who's
it all.
calling.
The same person we're talking about.
Yeah, I
The
have
irony.
to send him a message and say I'll call you back.
Did you put it on silent this time at least?
No.
Didn't vibrate?
Oh yeah, I don't think it vibrated.
Okay.
So even if you win, you still lose. So think about it like, I've had this conversation with people before about having arguments and disagreements with their homeowners association, the HOA. And even if you win, the HOA will then try to make your life a nightmare.
Yes.
They will find a new way for you to lose.
Yes.
This can be with an employer. This can be with, unfortunately, in some circumstances, a relationship like a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, spouse situation. So like if I say, hey, can I go, or I'm going to go do something or whatever, and she doesn't want me to do it. It's the thing where they'll say, you'll be like, you do what you want. So I'm like, wait, I want to go fishing. I want to go fishing for a week in Costa Rica, and you stay here.
Okay.
And you'll be like, just do what you want. And I'm like, well, she just said do what I want, which is obviously code for don't do what you want.
Don't do what you want.
So I win. She says do what you want. I go fishing. I come back. I've lost. So even if you win, you still lose, unfortunately. I don't know if that's going to be the case with Iowa. But speaking of Rhode Island, it's in their state of emergency. I'll share this with you because you haven't seen this one.
I have not seen this one, but maybe you haven't seen what I just saw either.
Well, this came out today,
So did mine.
Cinco de Mayo, and it says that the governor has extended the state's C-19 emergency executive order, apparently for the last time, with the order's latest expiration date on Friday. Today, Governor Dan McKee extended the order for less than another week until May 11 to coincide with the end of the federal emergency. Rhode Island's order was first enacted on March 9, 2020 by then Governor Gina Raimondo and extended since then. McKee had been extending the order on a monthly basis.
You said Texas did the same thing today?
Texas did not do the same. Texas border cities in state of emergency with Title 42 set to end.
Now, the state of emergencies that they are claiming or whatever, it's because there's still government funding related to them, correct? That's why they are extending them?
This one says that some Texas cities have declared a state of emergency ahead of the expected end of the COVID border restriction known as Title 42. City officials say they don't have enough resources to handle an influx of migrants. NBC News' Gabe Gutierrez reports from El Paso and speaks with local officials.
Now, what's interesting is that today there was breaking news around 11 o'clock today that the WHO has declared C-19 over, that it is no longer a global pandemic. It is now just a health, how do they phrase it? It's no longer a scare. It's just like how everybody gets a cold, everybody gets a flu. That's what they have categorized it as now. I can't remember what words it was used.
Somebody actually commented, I believe on a live stream, that we were talking about traveling, and they said that Australia had introduced another mask mandate. But just a quick search, doesn't seem like that's the case, It says they have studies supporting mask mandates earn expression of concern. Another one here that says study finds masks did not reduce the C19 for children aged 10 to 12. But I don't see any recent news here about Australia launching a new mandate, except for one back in November of last year. But it says it'll be mandatory in hospitals. So I'm not 100% sure
Here's the thing.
the accuracy of that statement.
So C19 is no longer a global health emergency, WHO declares, though it remains a global health threat. They're not considering it an emergency anymore. This was breaking news. It says the World Health Organization lifted its designation, signifying assessment that the danger posed by the coronavirus pandemic has lessened. The Biden administration is set to end the U.S. public health emergency status for the coronavirus pandemic on May 11th.
Well, it's crazy because it initially really kind of got the ball rolling when it came to shortages. And a lot of people jumping on the train of stockpiling and preparing. And we had just finished up a live stream not too long ago. Maybe you guys saw it, maybe you didn't, maybe you'll catch it after this. But I think it was Amy and Luke asked what we thought, or at least what I thought about the future, this next 6 months moving forward with shortages, food shortages, and the economy. So interestingly enough, I don't know if you guys caught the most recent update from the Fed, Jerome Powell, and yet another interest rate hike. So, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because the Fed interest rate hike really coincides closely with jobs or unemployment or lack thereof, interest rates and borrowing money. And both of these will impact household balance sheets. There was a phrase, there was a quote, there was a saying by Jerome Powell: pain will be felt by families and businesses as the economy shrinks. Personal balance sheets at home shrink as we try to tame inflation.
That still bothers me that he wants families to feel the pain.
So I've got a full breakdown. We had a long discussion, debate, heated debate on this on Patreon. And ultimately, at the end of the day, what I think about the future of shortages, the future of food shortages, the future of stockpiling and prepping and the economy, I think it's kind of irrelevant. But, there have been videos in the past where I would say, stockpile, stock up. There's a very important item that I'm stocking up on, that we are stockpiling. And that is going to be of capital and resources, okay? The financial, monetary component as it relates to being able to go out and buy celery, organic celery, going out and buying cucumbers, going out and buying carrots.
What?
Going out and buying a new laptop after you slam yours into the countertop. Because that's what I want to stock up on most. That's what I want my stockpile to be of, is the means, the financial component, the fiat currency, the ability, the resources available to survive in this economy. Now, granted, this may be different for some and others on their stance and their position and what they think about it. But in my experience, the biggest problems that most people face when venturing down this path, this journey,
I'm not trying to make all the noise.
is making more money, spending less money, having a budget, saving, eliminating debt, and investing. All of which we discuss in detail on Patreon for those who are interested. But at the end of the day, what I would do if I was not prepared would be to pay attention to what the Fed has done and is doing and brace myself for the future, which could potentially be a really, really good future. We have all these negatives that we discuss and we hear about and we talk about and we try to track and follow as far as, the future of the dollar collapse and the dollar crash, CBDC, negative interest rates, expiration dates on currency, the Chinese yuan taking over the dollar for international trade, the petrodollar, BRICS nations, all this stuff. But we got to focus at home first, okay? And, full disclosure, we are not financial advisors. So this is not financial advice. We live in an apartment. So ultimately, everything that I'm going to tell you about money and finances is completely false and incorrect because obviously we don't know anything because we live in an apartment and it just doesn't make sense. So
I hope people understand your sarcasm when you do it.
So anyway, with that being said, we got to get our money on track. And that's going to start with the thought process, the mindset of doing just that. Not so much worrying about the food shortages and the empty shelves and stockpiling and prepping and going hungry and things like that, or potentially being homeless, but knowing that is a possibility, but we want to make sure that doesn't become a reality. Therefore, let's work towards building and improving, especially with the warning shots, the warnings that continuously happen month after month from the Fed, and actually day after day, as the Fed makes their announcements, then economists and businesses and bankers and financial analysts all then take that data and take other inputs to create and paint a much bigger picture of the economy and what's likely to happen moving forward. So, we just gotta work harder, smarter, more efficiently, more effectively, and then, in my opinion, stockpile as much as you can of that precious resource. Then put it to great use, because ultimately that's what the Fed is doing. The Fed is setting the stage for a recession, and then after that recession, they're setting the stage for recovery. And if you enter into this recovery state in a strong financial position, then you're going to be really, really happy. If you enter into this recession in a poor financial state and you maintain that poor financial state throughout the recession, and we get into recovery mode and you're still in a poor financial state or quite possibly a worse financial state, far worse than you went into the recession, never actually doing anything to improve and get better, and only being in a bad position when it comes to money, savings, credit, investing, things like that, and your career if you still have a job at that point. So once we hit the recovery mode, it's going to be even worse, because the recovery mode is going to take off, and it's going to be like feast or famine, and those who don't have are going to, ultimately they're going to have a hard time. It's going to be a struggle. So paying attention to the money, to the finance, paying attention to the Fed, paying attention to these interest rates, paying attention to how these mortgage brokers and mortgage lenders react, paying attention to the housing market, the stock market, real estate market, cryptocurrency market, paying attention to, we pay attention to YouTube on a regular basis. And, we can really see how the economy has an impact and plays into YouTube, the viewer, the audience, the algorithm, everything. It's crazy how, but I said YouTube's a business, so I treat it as such. But one of the questions that I get hit with a lot is, retirement, 401k, Social Security, fixed income, things like that. Investing in crypto, investing as a beginner, buying crypto, buying Bitcoin, buying XRP, buying gold, buying silver, things like that, buying stocks. I like that Squirrel Tribe tunes in for these conversations and chats, because she'll tell you, I'm not the financial one, but she listens, she pays attention, and she gets it. She just chooses to speak about other topics in her channel, which is perfectly fine. But even then, those topics then tie into the financial component often, especially when analyzing how businesses operate, following the money, following the trail, the clues, connecting the dots. But one of them is, oftentimes should I pay off a mortgage early? Now, again, we don't have a mortgage. We haven't had a mortgage for a year. And of the mortgages we've always had really good interest rates, but the last one was amazing. It was under 3%.
2.62.
2.62%. Thanks to the CARES Act, thanks to, unfortunately, C-19 pandemic, thanks to the Trump administration, thanks to a lot of things that seemingly are bad, but were really good. And we saw the opportunity and we acted on it. And I think we started acting on it before, the masses. And I remember when I thought about it and I was really thinking about it and I approached our real estate team with it, I think Kim thought I was crazy. Mm-hmm. And I was like, no, I think this is going in the right direction. And it worked out really well. I mean, it worked out really well. Mm-hmm. But according to Realtor.com, paying off your mortgage early may not be a great idea. And the number one reason that they give is because you get a tax break on your interest. As well, number two is that you can take out a home equity loan, which may come in handy in the near future, depending on how this recession or recovery plays out. Three, you could be making a higher return elsewhere than the interest that you would be paying on this property that is appreciating in value, okay? Four, you have other debts with a higher interest rate, which according to Dave Ramsey, he doesn't really focus on that. He focuses on the principal balance owed on the debt versus the interest. But, splitting hairs here, but at the end of the day, if you have a much higher rate of interest on another debt that isn't appreciating in value or making you money, then I would probably look to pay that off before the mortgage. And odds are, if you got a mortgage for $1, $2, $3, $4, $500,000 or maybe even more, it's probably going to be easier to pay off a credit card with $5,000 or $10,000 or even $20,000 on the limit. Last but not least, you want to make sure that your emergency and retirement funds are safe. So we talked about this on previous videos, but the last thing that I would want to do is go into retirement thinking, great, I don't have a mortgage, but I also don't have a savings and safety net because I use it to pay off my mortgage. Now I've experienced some sort of financial hiccup in my retirement income, and I wish I had that instead of having zero principal balance on my mortgage. Number one, your retirement should include income, not savings alone. And this income can be a derivative of the dividends from investments, other passive income streams from other investments. It doesn't have to be, I'm retired, but I still work, so I have an income. But if you're only relying on a retirement savings to last through the indefinite time period of which you'll be retired and alive, basically, then you're ultimately against a clock that you don't know when it's going to run out. That'd be like trying to get a buzzer beater shot to win the NBA Finals, but not knowing how much time was left to take the shot. So it would almost be impossible to beat those odds. But last but not least is you got to realize that even if you pay off your mortgage, you're never going to be free and clear, and you will always be required to pay your property tax. So just keep that in mind. What do I think about food shortages, stockpiling, prepping, the economy moving forward? Again, irrelevant coming from somebody who lives in an apartment building and has zero financial sense. But those are just my takes. If you guys got questions, comments, concerns, feel free, drop them down below. Until next time, I'll see you guys. Peace.